Welcome back to Remote Work Bay. I have Christine Lai here with me today. Christine, how are you doing?
Oh, as good as can be. Thanks for having me today, Audrey.
Thanks for being here. So you have such an interesting story, and I feel like it's so complex, but could you tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now and what you have been doing?
Yeah, for sure. I think maybe the thing that you're like, oh, it's such a unique thing. I feel like everyone has a unique story, but one of the things that I love to do is I have a practice of taking life sabbaticals. And I feel like that's really been like a through line in my entire life. And I also think in terms of just thinking about what I've quote unquote done, regardless of the industry, whether it's like sports or entertainment or hospitality or education or organizational culture, the through line through all of it is around connection. And like, how do we actually like orient to the right person or the right idea or the right connection or the right organization? And so I've been really so fortunate over the past couple years that a foundation has been funding my role, but I don't work for them. It's a really unique setup, but the work has all been around entrepreneurial ecosystems. So how do we help cities and communities across the country understand that it's not just recruiting an Amazon HQ2 to be their solution for economic revitalization, but how do they actually invest in their own? The grass is greener where you water it, not on the other side.
Right,
So
right.
how do you create access to capital, access to networks, access to resources, technical assistance for founders and startups? Because that in the long run will hopefully create more economic revitalization and resilience for your community than just a corporation.
So would you call yourself, like a community connector or super connector in the community? That's how I see you. But how would you define your role?
I mean, it's so hard. It's still a little bit cringy for me, and I've learned to embrace it a little bit more. At the end of the day, I think I'm just really curious about people, and I want to understand like what is it that they want to share with the world, and how to make that happen. And so, whether that is in a community role, a connector role, a catalyst role, whatever the case may be, I'm just happy to be like another human on this journey of life together. And so, yeah.
Awesome. Well, when we first met, you were just ending your time with delivering happiness. Could you talk a little bit about your journey there and why you decided to leave? And, what does it mean to you to pursue the art of embracing the in-between, which I
Mm.
feel like you coined that term now.
Oh my gosh, there's so many questions just in that one. I will try to hopefully answer all of them. I think so. That role was again super dream role. I feel really grateful that I've kind of like been in dream role after dream role, and that one came after my second sabbatical. And I go to a lot of dinners and host a lot of dinners, and happened to meet the right people at the right time who knew the co-founders of Delivering Happiness, Tony Hsieh, who used to be the CEO of Zappos, and then one of his best friends and co-authors, Jen Lim, who wrote the book with him. And so right place, right time, total dream opportunity. Like it was all around like, how do we help individuals and organizations understand the alignment of like passion, purpose, vision, values, and how those things actually work together. And a lot of Tony's philosophy around focusing on employee happiness and
Yeah.
really understanding how that starts with you first, and then it extends to your team, your organization, and then hopefully out to your clients and your community. Total dream. And I think I came on board with the team at a time when they were trying to figure out their business model. And so I was really fortunate to come in, ask good questions, listen, kind of help figure out a different direction in terms of the organization to focus on. And then when we got to the phase of really understanding we wanted to double down on being, we call it a coach consulting company,
Mhm.
hybrid coaching, hybrid consulting. It
Right.
wasn't really my sweet spot to help move the company forward at that stage. And so
Got it.
I realized the way that I phrase it is like, hopefully all of our jobs are dream jobs. So how do we make sure that we're not taking someone else's dream job? And
Right.
so I think that really plays into my sabbaticals. And I think what we've talked about, so many times in our conversations about this like in between liminal transition space, the
Mhm.
quote that really drives my sabbaticals, it's from, I think, a Japanese proverb. It says, we've all been given this
Mhm.
gift of life. What we do with our lives is our gift back. And I think societally, we're so conditioned to jump from job to job just to quote unquote make money. And we don't oftentimes give ourselves the space or time to figure out what our gifts are that we want to share with the world.
Mhm.
And so I think, really embracing that liminal is just like, especially now at this time, like
Right.
we are like really being faced with like everything, for better or for worse has always been uncertain, but it's just much more in our face now. And
Mhm.
so how do we really understand to be in the present? there was another quote that was shared with me just the other day. It was like, if you're depressed, you're like living or thinking about the past.
Mhm.
If you're anxious, you're living or thinking about the future. And when you're at peace, you're in the present.
I like that. I
And so
really like that.
I feel like that's what helps be in the liminal, is like, how do you just
Mm.
try as much as you can to be in the present?
And especially with what's going on in today in 2020, what does it mean? So when you're embracing the in between, what are you doing? Are you just focusing on self-care? I mean, could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think it depends on kind of like what stage you're at to like in your own career in life. Like I would share, like when I was in my first sabbatical, a lot of it was just kind of like higher risk tolerance. I didn't have anything to lose. I was really curious because I was just leaving my first startup, and it's like blinders on. It's like, hello world, like what's going on? What's available? What's cool? So I would say in that sabbatical was just about having as many conversations with people who I admired, respected, thought they had really interesting career stories, just
Mhm.
asking them to share their story. And then in my last sabbatical, which was like my longest one, it was 2.5 years. And,
Right.
I'm a little bit older now. And, and so it was really for me, there's a few themes, but I think for me was a combination of like understanding, how do I unlearn and relearn? It's like, there are things that get us here that may not help us get there, whatever here and there are. But how do we take assess of like the things, the habits, the behaviors that we've picked up, honed for better, for worse, that no longer maybe serve us because they were great in our 20s and maybe not in our 30s. And
Right.
then how do we honor them, appreciate them, let them go, or reimagine them, so then we can be hopefully a little bit more holistic, a little bit more, like you're saying, focused on self-care and a
Mhm.
lot of other things that maybe we don't prioritize as much when we're younger, because we can hustle and we can do other things. And so I think it depends. I think a lot of it though is just having some space and time to like reflect, think about, am I actually doing the things that energize me? Am I doing the things that I feel like I'm uniquely positioned to do? And are they things that are helping me grow and learn, and all of the things that hopefully add to like a really rich life?
Is there a certain amount of time that you put aside for this in between phase? Because, like you said, it's 2.5 years was the last one, and I don't know how long was the first one. And I'm trying to embrace this in between right now based on chatting with you last year. And, the question is like, are you making money at this time? Have you saved up money? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, always a good practical question. I always welcome it and
Yes.
appreciate it. I mean, so to answer the first question in terms of like length of time, I don't, for better or for worse. My first sabbatical was a year and a half. My second one was about 9 months. And then this last one was about 2.5 years. And I kind of joke at this stage, it's like, now I just like think about all of life as a transition. So I feel grateful in this moment that I have a unique setup at the foundation where they fund my role. So that's like, one part of how I sustainably make money. I think it's also, especially at this time, thinking about value. I actually have a necklace that says value on it. And so thinking
Oh,
about like, what is actually value? Like we all have different forms of value, whether that's monetary, social, creative, like so many relational, there's just so much different value. And like even where I am in this moment, like I am very, very grateful to be in Manhattan Beach right now at a
mhm.
friend's place, and they generously open their home whenever they're on vacation. They're like, Christine,
Nice.
house is all yours. And and it's like, it's good for them because then they have someone to like be here and the house isn't empty. And then I get to be in a really beautiful, spacious place that I can like, have some time to be by the beach, whatever the case may be. And so I think just thinking about sabbaticals from a practical standpoint, getting back to the like, okay, well, but how do you financially make it work, Christine?
Right, right.
I'm a big believer, and I think this comes from, some stuff like Susie Orman talks about, or some other kind of financial coaches and some other financial wellness folks, like, how are we making sure we pay ourselves first? I
Yeah.
remember when I was probably like 15 or 16, my aunt like showed me this piece of paper, Audrey. It was like
Mhm.
compounding interest, when interest used to be good, right? Even if you put in like $10 a month, like that $10 a month, I forgot the actual, there's like a phrase. It's like, if I gave you a penny a day, I should remember
I
this.
know, I know that
If I gave
exactly
you a
what
penny a
you're talking
day for
about. Mhm.
30 days, would you want that, or would you want $3 million or some, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's like understanding that actually time is also value,
Right.
and how money compounds over time. But I think, long story short, a lot of things is, when you are working and you are working hard, how are you making sure that money is working for you in the long run? I
Mm.
think I think especially right now, one of the things that really broke my heart around COVID was thinking about all the people who've worked their entire lives for retirement,
Right.
to then go on vacation, to then go on their adventure, to really experience and live life. And now they're like,
Yeah. Like, what do I do?
what do I do? And so I think for like embracing the liminal and being able to like enjoy, it's almost like having mini retirements in some ways,
Mhm.
where you're able to spread out or actually understand what it looks like to
Right.
like, hopefully I hope that I never have to retire. I hope that
Yeah.
I just get to like live life as full as possible
Mhm.
and get choices of when I am really focused and committed to a specific project or an organization. And when I have more freedom and flexibility of what I want to do, what I'm energized by. And that kind of ebbs and flows, right? Like
Right.
my big indicator for that, I always joke, is like an alarm clock, a clock. Like, and Tony Hsieh also has this as one of his stories too. But for me, I would say 9 to 10 times I wake up without my alarm. And
Mhm.
so it's a good indicator for me that I'm energized. I'm looking forward to the day. Too
Right.
many days when I hit snooze, it's like, maybe it's
Right.
time to take a sabbatical.
Right.
And then in sabbatical mode, it's like too many days when I'm sleeping in, I'm like, okay, I got to get my butt in gear, you
Right.
know? So
Right.
a
Finding
little
that
bit,
balance,
a
right?
little bit of both. Exactly.
Right. So would you say you're still in the in between? Or are you like now working full time on this project?
So that's kind of what I joke. It's like, I feel like now I like embrace all of life to be in the in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
This past sabbatical, I can share a couple of like quick stories.
Yeah.
Like I thought that I was designing like my dream role with a new venture capital firm, and on paper it was like the thing. And for whatever reason, after we designed the role and they gave me an offer, for whatever reason, I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a dream job. It's just not my dream job, and it doesn't feel right. And I was like, okay, universe, what's going on? Like, why was that not the thing, you know? And a phrase that really helped me through my sabbaticals that I even embrace now is opt-in, where opt stands for open, patient, trusting.
Got it.
So how do we be really open with what shows up, who shows up, how they show up? How do we be patient with ourselves and the process? And how
Right.
do we trust that everything's happening for us, not to us?
Got it.
And then a month later, I got a phone call, Audrey, from a foundation, and they shared this incredible work with me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And
Wow.
then I was like, I want to preface up front, I'm unhireable, non-employable, and I have no interest in being a consultant, contractor, or freelancer, but
Mhm.
I'm stoked to be a team member. And
Okay.
so if that jives, I'm happy to continue listening and figuring it out. And if not, I'm happy to help figure out who your next best person is. And so my current setup is I work very flex up to half time with them, which
Okay.
allows me the space to, focus on wherever else I think I can best serve or wherever energizes me or that I'm curious about.
That's amazing. And I think, like what you said, I think the hardest part though is like figuring out what those values are and what it is that you want to do. I mean, do you have any tips for people that end up listening to this video? Like, what can they do to center themselves, figure out what their values are, and be their most authentic self?
Such a great question. I think there's so many cool exercises out there. I
Mhm.
think for me, the most simple thing is just think about the things that energize you, that give you energy. Like that's the most
Got it.
present in the moment thing that you can do. And you can almost kind of audit yourself a little bit if you want to do that over a period of time, like looking at your days or looking at your calendar or just over the course of a few days, like say like, how's my energy in the morning, in the afternoon, the evening? Some of it might be related to food, but that could be another
Yeah.
conversation, which we talk about also.
Yeah. Yes.
But I think, yeah, just really being honest with yourself and like, are the things that I'm doing that I'm like prioritizing, do they give me energy or are they draining?
Mhm.
The ability to change them. How do you start making adjustments or experiment with it to try to figure out what is that? And then what are those values like that align with that? Whether it's like being surrounded by like really smart intellectual people, whether it's being, having fun with everyone that you're engaged with, like
Right.
whether it's just having space to do whatever you want. Like those, I think values show up. I'm a really big believer that like, look at the information points of your actions and behaviors,
Mhm.
work
Mhm.
backwards with your values versus sometimes some people are like, let me just think about my values
Yeah.
versus just seeing, well, how are you living your life?
Right.
And that's also
Right.
another good information point.
Yeah, that's great. And I really like that example of the alarm clock, like
Totally.
just to like, if you're waking up and you're excited, you're probably going to want to get out of bed. That's a really good indicator. I'm going to apply that to my life.
Yeah. Hopefully, like the simple stuff, right? Like nothing too overly thought out or too complicated. It's just like a simple thing. And you can see like, am I jumping out of bed being like today, I was like so stoked that we were going to talk. I had a couple other really fun phone calls today
Mhm.
versus being like, ugh, I have to do what? And so totally.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So I wish there was like some level, just like measuring your energy levels, like a little watch I could wear and be like, oh, I'm pretty
Oh,
happy today.
I'm sure someone will come up with that. I know that
So,
there's certainly the pulse tools that some companies use, but
especially in a recession economy, I feel like some of the most interesting companies come out of a downturn economy. So I'm
truth,
already excited to see what comes out of this year.
very, very true.
And speaking along the lines of happiness, I was very curious since you worked for delivering happiness, what happiness means to you.
Oh my gosh, what a good question. I know everyone's always like delivering happiness. Can you
Yeah.
deliver me some happiness? Or like, what does that actually mean? Yeah, I mean, I think it's such a good question. I think it all is dependent on like what it is for you. When I like, what is it that fills up your cup? I think when I think about that, the way that I would answer it now is I think like understanding that like you're enough, and then understanding like the things that really energize you, again, back to energy. And
Yeah.
then hopefully, for me, being connected, like I think that always gives me a sense of purpose and happiness, is like being connected with other people, being with loved ones, being with family and friends. But I think just being able to like just enjoy life. Like I've been doing a lot of different virtual gatherings and different events and different things like that. And
Mhm.
some design principles for it is like, is it fun? Is it meaningful? Is it simple? If we
I
can make it do those three things, like hopefully that brings joy, or hopefully that brings happiness, to your point, or whatever it may be. But what are the simple design principles that, we're already enough, like know that you're enough. And what are the things that, fill up our cup or kind of give that added joy?
And to apply those three things to anything you do in life.
I kind of feel like I started to. Like I used it initially with a group of friends and designing like a little virtual gathering for 50 of us. And I've used that now like in so many things. So it's
Wow.
it's it's been great.
That's amazing. And so you've been hosting these online like
Oh my
Zoom
gosh.
adventures. Are they dinner parties? Like what are they?
So, well, there's so many different constellations. Like I feel like I joke, I have all these fun signs that I have for like
Oh,
different like
oh my gosh.
celebrations, or like, just different responses. I can just keep going for all
Love
of these
it.
things.
Oh,
Or if you have like, we had a couple birthday parties over the past couple of weeks. Like I think, Zoom technology, like it's all there as a platform, but it's up to us to like figure out what we want to do with it.
mhm.
And so, in terms of the gathering that I was talking about, that was for 50 global community builders. And we did a 4-day event. And we were like, okay, how does this feel good? Like, what is it that it's going to take us, like, put an out of office on, or really invite us to show up? And it was like the most, like, meaningful, simple, like,
Ah,
fun thing. Like really those design principles like really were our guiding light in that. And more recently with the foundation that I do some work with, we did a virtual summit, a 2-part 3-day event last month that was almost 1,000 people.
oh
And
my gosh.
I really felt like we broke through a virtual barrier. And
Wow.
then like small things like, a friend's birthday tea party this past weekend where they sent little tea tasting packets to everyone's house. And then I I ordered brunch to get delivered to their house after the tea tasting. Or like last weekend, we had another friend's like surprise birthday, like lip sync celebration. It was hilarious. Audrey,
Wow.
hilarious. Everyone got on, like 30 friends, all get on Zoom,
Yeah.
turn off their cameras, change their names.
Oh, wow.
We would have one person who was like the MC. She was like the host. She would
Yeah.
like give a little fun fact. And then we would literally turn like one person at a time, turn their camera and like lip sync as hard as you can
Oh
to
my
like the
gosh.
best songs. It was
That
the
is hilarious.
delightful and hilarious.
I love it. And I love your ideas of the signs because when you have so many
So
people on a
fun.
call, it's kind of cool to just like, this is how I feel. I'm
Yes,
happy. Hooray.
totally.
That is
Totally.
really brilliant,
It's
actually.
so fun. And another, if people do facilitation or like do things with different, calls or whatever, this
Mhm.
is from a dear friend, Chris Chavez.
Uh-huh.
So I borrowed this from him, but I use it as my favorite facilitation tool now. So
Uh-huh.
I introduce it at the top of a call, and I always tell folks, okay, I'm going to hold up this heart. If I hold it up, it's like an invitation to wrap up your thought to make sure that everyone else has a chance to speak. So
Oh,
imagine being at an award show and the music starts playing,
you're like,
and the louder the music gets, the closer the heart gets to the screen, is an invitation for you to, you
oh
know.
my gosh,
And anyways, but
brilliant.
fun stuff.
It's like, it's so funny. It's like going to therapy and you have to, if you're holding the apple, you get to talk. You know?
The talking stick. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. That's so brilliant. I've never even thought of that.
So
I've
fun.
in quarantine, I've been hosting these Zoom parties, and we basically every week we raise money for different charities, and we bring on different artists to DJ, dance, any type of visual art, right? And I wish I knew more of these like little like tips and tricks, because that it's true. It's hard to like gather people and then figure out who gets to talk or who's next outside of having like moderators that are like moderating the actual feed.
Yeah.
That's a great idea, especially for like a large group setting.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a good, social cue stuff because like this,
Right.
we're in a new environment. So yeah, it's fun.
Well, thanks for those tips. I'm definitely going to use them. That's so cute. I have to like get my drawing skills on. Well, I also wanted to get a little bit into your travels in the last couple of years. I went to see if you could tell us a little bit more about your adventures around the world. Where have you journeyed to during your time off? Like, how did you choose your destinations? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Totally. I would say this last time, so my first two sabbaticals were much more international. This last one, I'm a big like take care of home first, and there's so many cool places to visit around the 50 states.
Mhm.
And so I did spend probably, I think like a couple months in Europe, but a lot of it was really because I can be anywhere at any time. And our work, even though now, of course, everyone's now familiar with remote work, but I've been doing remote work since I was a teenager. And
Right.
so I think because I can do it wherever, I love being in person with people whenever possible. And so I would always prioritize like the weddings and the baby showers and the birthdays and then the events and the convenings and the summits and all of those things. And so I feel really grateful that so much of what dictated where and when I was invitations from family and friends. And so I think you had access to it too, Audrey, my shared travel calendar.
I still have it. It was so funny beginning of quarantine. I was like, you come up in my mind, at least once a quarter. And I'm like, I wonder where Christina is. And I'll like click your Google Calendar. I'm like, oh, she's in LA. I'm in LA right now too. So that was so great to be able to keep track of you.
It's such a fun way. It's kind of like a little bit Carmen Sandiego-esque that when we were traveling, yeah, when we were traveling so much more freely, I have shared travel calendars now with at least a handful of friends.
Yeah.
And it's so nice just to be able to know, like, where are you in the world? Like, what time zone are you in or whatever. But yeah, just really being able to like show up for like important moments, important events, important things in people's lives that really dictated kind of where and when I was. And yeah, you know how I am. I joke that I was like geoflexible
Yes.
before COVID. And now I'm like, I've been in SoCal since like March, which is the longest time I've been in one place since I was a teenager, which is wild,
Yeah.
but a very welcome change.
Right. And when you move around to different cities, you stay with friends every time, or how does that work?
That's why the travel calendar, pro tip, y'all.
Wow, that's incredible. They're like,
Yes.
you're going to be in town. Come stay with me.
I mean, Audrey, truly, like it's like, it was a combination of like, because I've done it a few times too,
Yeah.
it just made the most sense to me. And so friends would be like, we're going on vacation. We see you have an open spot in your calendar. Do you want to just come here? Or
Oh,
friends
wow.
like, you're coming to LA, like come stay with us, or let's host a dinner together. And so it was like a combination of like me doing the proactive part when I used to like reach out to folks, but then people who had my calendar would be like, so you're coming to LA. What are you doing on Saturday? Let's hang out, or let's do a dinner, or let's have a slumber party.
That is so smart. And what are your, I'd say like top three favorite places you went in the last couple of years?
Oh my gosh. So a fun one, earlier this year before COVID, a friend has a couple tree houses in Chattanooga. They're
What?
called
Wow.
Treetop Hideaways. Yep, I
Wow.
think it's called Treetop Hideaways in Chattanooga.
Uh-huh.
Spent a week there. Super fun. Like, just like, I don't know, just kind of like living a dream in a tree house. Like, come on.
Wow. So
So,
it's like a full house. Like you
oh,
climb up there and then.
so not that hardcore. So one of them was, his original one was he actually raised money through Kickstarter for it, I think.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
it's like there's like a cool copper shower in that one and a bunch of other things. I stayed in the one that they did in partnership with Dove. So I guess Dove found him on Instagram
Oh my
and was
God.
like, would you be down to build another house? And he's like, sure.
Uh-huh.
It's like probably one of the fancier tree houses. Like, it had like I think 5-head shower, maybe 6-head shower. There's a tree in the tree house.
Wow.
There's like, yeah, it was like very sweet. So
That is so cool.
Chattanooga tree houses.
Okay, I'm gonna Google it right
that
after.
was that was one. Where else? I mean, so many. So when I went to Europe, there's a place in Aix-en-Provence called the Camp, and they're like one of the more sustainable kind of like group kind of convening places. I loved them, like their food, their environment, and then obviously the south of France.
Oh,
Awesome.
I love this. I want to go back so badly.
Yes, so that was a treat.
Yes.
And then I mean, Denver is also just such a sweet spot. I always love Denver. And so I think Denver is such a gem of a place in terms of not being too big of a city, not too small, great foodie spot, lots
Mhm.
of good nature, easy to get to almost anywhere in the country. So I really love Denver and Boulder too. Those three come to mind: Chattanooga, Denver, Boulder, and Aix-en-Provence.
Oh my gosh. Two of them are in the States.
Two of them
I'm
are in the
surprised. I was
States.
expecting like three international
I
spaces.
know. There's so many cool places in the US.
I know. I remember when you almost when we first met, you were heading out to Philippines,
For a
and you
wedding.
were out there for a little bit. I forget
Yeah.
how
I mean,
long?
if you're gonna go out that far, you gotta make it a thing.
Yeah, I know. Well, where's the first place you're gonna go when this whole quarantine is over?
Great question. I mean, one of the places that was on my list to go this year was Japan.
Oh yeah,
Olympic stuff and everything else, but I just love Japan. I miss Japan.
food.
Food, exact girl.
I
You
know.
know, you know
I know. I love
it.
Asia. Just all the food in Asia in general is so good.
Yeah. So I'd probably say Japan. I think just that comes to mind first.
I mean, I think they moved the Olympics back to
They
next year.
did. To their cool new logo is like 2021. They spell out the
Oh,
ONE with the other O with a zero.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
So
Well, I
fingers
hope
crossed.
it happens. I really do. I know a couple of the big conferences and festivals that are supposed to be in Q1 next year have already gone virtual. So
Yep.
hopefully by summer it's going to be a little better.
We'll see. I mentally am personally preparing myself to not travel until the end of 2021. I
Oh,
feel fairly confident that a
okay.
vaccine will be available before then.
Yes.
And in terms of widely accessible, widely available, and also kind of like herd immunity,
Mhm.
I personally just don't feel responsible. And I also am very grateful I don't feel disconnected in this time of being physically distant.
Mhm.
But I just am at least mentally preparing myself through the end of
Like
2021.
another year. Yeah. That's a good end date. It gives you like another year and a quarter. And are you planning to stay in SoCal for the remainder of the time? So you've been in Manhattan Beach for 6
So not all of it. So I would say, yeah. So I was in a few Airbnbs for a little bit, and then I've also silver lining of this time, hopefully for a lot of people, is spending time with their families.
Yes.
I know that can sometimes be challenging, and hopefully it's an opportunity to just spend time with loved ones. And so I've really enjoyed being with my folks, and I'm so spoiled. So double
And
win,
lots of good food at home too.
double win.
I love it. I love it. And it's not a bad gig. I mean, looking at your beautiful space in
Yeah,
Manhattan Beach, I mean,
super grateful.
very, very grateful. Well, that's awesome. So I want to get into a little bit of the community space. So
Yeah.
one of your greatest gifts is being a connector of people. With the pandemic and everything that's happened this year, how can people stay connected with one another? And more importantly, how can people better help one another through these tough times and divided times?
Such a great question, Audrey. I think to keep it as simple as possible, and this is kind of like my mindset or philosophy before COVID, it's
Mhm.
kind of like if you're thinking about someone, send them a note. Because like, and you get my random notes every now and then, and
Yeah,
I know you send me random
I
notes
was like,
now and
hi.
then too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's kind of like one of those things, like I feel really fortunate that I have friends from preschool still. And it's like,
Wow.
years can go by, but if I think about you, I don't feel awkward about not reaching out to you because like, oh, I haven't talked with Audrey for a few years. I don't want to send her a note. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Versus being like, Audrey, thought about you, just want to say hi. That's
Right.
it. Because people, hopefully it's a nice thing to like know that people are thinking about you. And so I think like just being able to like know that if you are proactive, if you're missing someone or if you're feeling lonely, someone else is probably missing you and or feeling lonely. And so
Right.
how do you just make sure that you take kind of the signals from the universe or the reminders that are all around us and proactively do something about it? I think
Mhm.
that's like just a baseline place to start. Like I know some folks who are better with like having certain goals or metrics, or like, okay, I'll send 3 text messages in the morning to like 3 friends,
Right.
So whatever it is that you need to like really get you to be proactive in reaching out to folks, I think is awesome. I
Mhm.
think there are a lot of different ways. There's a couple apps that friends have kind of been trying out. One's called Upstream. It's through Orchestrated. I can't remember the actual thing, but like I think the platform is called Upstream, and then the thing is called Orchestrated Connections, I think. But like
Okay.
you can go on and like connect with folks. It's like kind of like speed dating for friends in some ways.
Oh,
Or there's
interesting.
also like Lunch Club, I think, that you can like,
I've heard
connect
of
with
that one.
strangers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like so many cool things. Some of them I like, some of them I don't. I just really like to connect with people that I already in some ways know.
Yeah.
And then I think at this stage, I feel really grateful because so many people are like, oh, Christine, you should talk with this person, or you should talk with this person, or this person comes to mind. And so I
Mhm.
think also just being open to things, but there's just so many things available right now. It's just kind of like thinking about what's actually like energizing. Again, going back to energy, like
Yeah.
what's fun for you. Cause like if you're an introvert and you're kind of like, I like kind of don't really want to like be in a huge networking event, but I could talk with one or two friends, like reach out to a couple of friends that you love having conversations with, or figure out like, you've been doing these cool, fun gatherings and things. Like if you
Right.
are an extrovert or you are a connector and a convener, what might be a thing that would be an invitation that you're excited to host and that other people would be, really delighted to kind of join. And so I think just really being able to think about if you're feeling it or if you're thinking about something, how do you also like create that space or fill that for yourself? Because more times than not, you are probably going to fill up so many other people's cups
Right.
by hopefully feeding your cup and others.
Right. And how about for yourself personally? Are you outside of seeing your parents? Have you been doing like social distance gatherings? Like what have you been doing?
Yeah, I would say only in the past week while I've been out here in Manhattan Beach have I like seen another kind of friend or human socially. Like I've really almost like 90+% have been on Zoom or
Wow.
FaceTime or any of the other online platforms. Yeah, I've really been pretty kind of like hardline in terms of like not traveling until the end of 2021,
Yep.
really not seeing anybody because it's just the more responsible thing to do, I think. But I mean, I think you also have to like live your life too. So
Hmm.
whatever feels good to you, if you're being safe and hopefully being mindful of other people, you got to live life too.
Right. It's the balance between not just your physical health, but your emotional and mental health.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I think you're an expert at the online connecting, with people, but not everybody knows how to do it, or maybe they're shy, like you were saying, or they're introverted. So, I think you're right. It's like a different formula for everybody, and it just
Yeah.
that one step, and just text someone, just text someone or call someone. Because all of us, I mean, I saw this sign on the 10 freeway that said hashtag together alone. And that's genuinely like the motto for the year, right? We're all quarantined in our homes, but we're still together doing it. We're just
Yeah.
not in person. Yeah.
Yeah, I try to remind folks, hopefully, because I know at the beginning everyone was like, oh, we're socially distant, which I get because we didn't want to be in social gatherings. But I think it's really important to say, like, we're just physically distant right now.
Right.
Like, right now, we're socially connected, me and you, even though
Right.
it's through Zoom. And
Right.
so hopefully that also is just like a mindset shift for some folks. But it is real. Like, I would share, like, after the lip sync birthday celebration that we had last
Yeah.
weekend, there was like a real, like, hangover. Cause like we were literally laughing hysterically for an hour, like
I love it.
practically crying, Audrey. And then all of a sudden it's like done. And it's like,
Oh
you're
no.
like, but
I can't.
where's everybody? What's going on?
Like,
And so that's real. I totally also
Mhm.
get that too. So I think just, yeah, like you said, if you're thinking about someone or you're feeling like you just want to chat with someone, like phone a friend, FaceTime a
Yeah.
friend, text a
For
friend.
sure. For sure. Yeah, that's great advice. And I mean, like, where do you see yourself, in the next couple of years or in the long run? Like, do you just see yourself like, continuing to hop around from passion project to next and kind of, having space for yourself as well, for the rest of your life? Or, what does 10 years look from now for
Oh my
Christine?
gosh, Audrey, it's funny. When I was little, I was like a prolific planner, like
Oh yeah.
truly,
I am too.
truly, 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 truly. Our little 4-year-old selves have been best friends, thinking about our plans.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like in the past, especially in the past few years, I just don't plan as far out anymore.
Mm,
Like, I mean, especially now in these days too.
yeah.
So I like barely even plan out like a few months, let alone a few weeks. And
Interesting.
so when you say like, what does 10 years look like? I guess like the things that I can hope for, yeah, is like, there's like a loving kindness meditation that I do with some friends. And it's like, I hope that I'm happy. I hope that I'm healthy, and I hope
Right.
that I'm at peace.
That's a good
How
answer.
that might look,
Yeah. That's
I don't
that's
know yet.
a great answer. I mean, the thing is like so much has changed day by day in the last 7 months. It's true. You just don't know. You really just don't know what's going to happen. You know,
Yes.
and it's such an interesting year, and I'm sure it's going to prolong to 2021, like you said. So yeah, I mean, you look happy and healthy and safe. So that's what matters. That totally what matters.
I was going to say a couple of fun things, just in terms of connection, going back to that point, and also kind of, hopefully being happy and healthy and at peace. I have this practice with some friends in the morning. It's called like morning practice, where we'll do like 10 minutes of breathing, 10 minutes of meditation, and 2 rounds of Pomodoro.
What's that?
2 rounds of Pomodoro. It's like a time management technique where you have like a focused 20 or 25 minutes to do a very specific task. So like oftentimes we have, people have like their big, hairy, audacious goal, or their big frog, or like the email they've been like prolonging to like do or whatever. And
Yeah.
so we have these 2 rounds of Pomodoro where you have a specific project. You tell the group, I'm going to work on this. At the end of it, you say, how was it? And
Mm.
then you just move forward. And so that's just like a really nice way to like kick off the day.
Oh,
So
I
that's
like
just really fun. And then in the evenings, I work out with a friend at 5, and we like get on Zoom together, and we do this thing called the class, and it's
that.
awesome. And it's just like, my hope is like post COVID, I'll hopefully be in the best shape of my life. That's like the plan.
Ooh, is the class like an app or?
It's I think it used to be like a class. It started out in New York. It's the class by Taryn Toomey. It's like, I think it's just like theclass.com.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, and it's amazing. It's like a combination. I don't know how they do it. It's like trauma healing, in not a weird way, trauma healing, and then like hit training.
Hmm.
And it's like the combination of the music, Audrey, and the movements, and the way that the good amount of their instructors just like instruct. It's just like on point. I love it.
Interesting. That is super fascinating. Can I just Google this?
Yeah, I think literally she's good. I think it's just theclass.com.
That's amazing. And
Yeah.
you do this every day.
We try to every day at 5.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. So that's some like stability and like especially
Yeah.
because you move around so much. This is like at least you have this like constant every day.
Yep. And it's good for accountability. It's good for connection with friends. Like, it's across the board, hits so many different things that just, yeah,
Oh, I
very
love
heartfelt.
that. I love that. So, I mean, I guess like I don't want to take up too much of your time, but is there anything else you want to share?
At this time. And some of this is like related to like remote work, some of this is related just like to life and purpose. I remember during the beginning of quarantine, or towards the beginning, one of our friends' elders said, I hope at this time in our lives, like, that people are falling more and more in love with their purpose every day. I think if people don't have clarity on their purpose, that they're giving themselves the space, the time, the compassion, the self-compassion to like just explore and like discover what that is. Because this is like such a, it could be such a rare, unique time in our lives that we can look back on. And hopefully we'll be like, wow, I really use that time to like connect with friends, or really figure out what it is that's like the thing that really energizes me, or whatever it is. And so I hope that people really see this time as a gift, and that it's happening for us and not to us. I think
Mm,
that's like a really big mindset thing.
yep.
And I know a lot of these things are also, a very luxurious, like privileged thing to say. And it's also hopefully a responsible thing that we can do for ourselves.
Yep.
So yeah, I really hope that people take time to like do whatever they've been like wanting to do, been curious about, wanting to get more clarity on. So
Right.
yeah, I really hope it's a time for people to, yeah, invest in themselves.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Christine, for your time. It was
Thank
so
you.
great catching up.